it's better for us to say, oh, by the way, he's autistic and he was just having I just explained it so they learn from it. Do you think that we were shy?
But what we've got to remember is we're dealing with a range of people with a range of levels of understanding and learning difficulty themselves and experiences of their own, experiences of bullying. Special educational needs in the department where I work, you know, you're planning for potentially 10 different lessons in one lesson.
And just to stop her there, I've seen her in action. I've seen this woman in action. We went to the care home. She is amazing. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Go. Do the 3, 2, 1 minute, Fraser. Give me a 5. Hello to all my beautiful people. Today it's an honor to be sitting with this absolute legend. But before we start, can everybody please subscribe to my channel, Unspoken Atik. Also, today's podcast is sponsored by Brown Bear. Brown Bear, sponsored by Brown Bear, fantastic. Right, today's podcast is about the world of learning disability. Just like myself, there's different levels of disability which I don't even know about, which we'll be going through today with an expert sitting next to me. This is Claire, one of the most nicest individuals that I've ever come across in my whole entire life. Now, I just want to give you a little bit of a backstory of how we met. So Claire reached out and she works in a school where there's children who suffer from autism, and my brother was autistic, so I thought to myself, this would be an ideal chance for me to go to the school and do a little bit of a motivational talk. It was by far the best talk and the best response I've ever had on any gig. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was one of the best gigs that we ever did. And since then, the connection between me and Claire has been so amazing. It feels like I've known her for years. She's part of my family. It's an honor to know her. And through this journey, I've met the family. I've met Becca, which we made history with the project called Good Geese 24. This is the backstory between me and Claire and how we met. It was amazing. I'm just gonna pass this over to Claire. Just introduce yourself and tell the public your name and what you do for a living.
Okay, right, so I'm Claire Larrington and I work for Cambridge Regional College, Huntingdon campus, which is an FE college, and I teach adults with a range of learning difficulties and disabilities. I've done that for 23 years now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Just want to get into the beginning of this. What made you go into, because you're a teacher, right?
Yeah.
What made you go into teaching children with learning disabilities? Why did you not go to like a normal school?
It goes right back to when I was 15 and I did my work experience at a school in Peterborough. And I was a young girl there, Down syndrome. And I just had a connection with her. And I was there for 3 weeks and her name was Anna. I'll never forget her. And I wanted to do that. I mean, my whole life has been part of looking after people and caring for people from a really young age anyway. And I get that from my mum, who was a nurse, you know, and also just an amazing person, really caring, looked after her elderly parents, and I was part of that journey. So I think it was quite easy for me to be that nature, you know, to want to sort of work with people and look after people. So I worked with this young girl, finished that, went to college to do some resits of GCSEs, I think it was at the time. I was about 17. And I saw a group of adults who had learning difficulties, and I followed them, and I went and found a teacher, and her name was Sadie Tibbett. And I ended up going on a residential trip with them. We did a trip to Grafton Water. So 15, looking after the young girl with Down syndrome in the junior school, Wellborn Junior School in Warrington. Okay. So then I spent this week, amazing week at Grafton Water on a performing arts week, where I really, really fell in love. And I was in awe of the teachers, absolute awe, especially this woman called Sadie. And I wanted to be her, you know. But never really sort of thought that I was good enough to do that.
Okay.
You know, I needed to get some qualifications. I needed to, I don't know, explore life a bit more, I guess. So I went out into industry, and then I met another amazing woman called Tanya, who taught me. I did some vocational qualifications while I was working, and I thought to myself, do you know what? If I can learn in this way, having had some sort of issues myself, which was later diagnosed when I was doing my teaching qualification, anybody can learn. And I want to be part of that. So I started off teaching IT with the proviso at Peterborough College, this was when I was in my mid-20s, that once I'd done my first year of teaching, I would be able to go and work in inclusive learning, which is where it all sort of began for me with Sadie Tibbett, and Sadie was still working there.
Wow.
And it was like my dream come true.
And your first ever class that you took on, what was it like? Do you remember it?
Absolutely, I do. It was amazing. It was something like I'd never experienced before. You know, I'd spent a year teaching adults IT in workshops and classroom-led. Just everyday members of the public. You know, there was classes of about 30 people.
Okay.
And that was a bit of a shock to me, but I loved it. You know, I loved IT at the time, and I loved how some of the older people were coming and they were learning, you know, how to use a mouse. And what was really funny is, you know, people were holding the mouse up in the air.
No
you know,
way.
You just don't believe that now. How IT and the knowledge of IT's evolved. So back then, we're talking 25 years ago now. You know, there was people learning how to do IT, and they were holding the mouse out when the pointer got to the top of the screen.
How old were these people?
Some of them were in their 60s.
Wow.
You know, fair play to them.
But credit to them, right?
To learn this new skill.
Amazing.
But it wasn't really where my heart was. I'd sort of reached the end where I thought, you know what, if somebody else asks me how to set a tab, I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer with patience.
Of course.
So I moved over to teaching adults with learning difficulties. And I could spend all day, every day, teaching somebody how to recognise the number 5 or counting up to the number 10.
Wow.
In as many different ways as possible. And it doesn't faze me. I don't lose my patience at all.
But,
you know?
but as a teacher, you need to have that kind of a skill to deal with it. Not only qualifications wise, obviously, because that's important to be a teacher and stuff, but does it take a certain kind of a person to deal with what you deal with on a daily basis? Do you think it has to do much with your character and you have to be born with something like this, or can it be learned?
Honestly, all the people I work with an amazing team of really like-minded people.
Okay.
I have to say it definitely takes a special kind of person to do the work that we do every day, all day, with the other challenges that we face as part of our job, you know? So we can have a class of, let's say, 10 students with a range of difficulties and disabilities and learning styles. So what we'd call a mainstream teacher would go in with their lesson plan and they would teach an English lesson. And they would stand at the front potentially, and we'd like to think that they'd use some of the sort of resources and what have you, and lots of people do. But when you work in SEN, special educational needs, in the department where I work, you know, you're planning for potentially 10 different lessons in one lesson. So you might have a group of students, 10's probably a bit extreme, you might have 2 or 3 groups of similar ability or similar learning style, and you plan so that you're accommodating each person's needs. And you might have people who require coloured paper or overlays or large fonts, you know, so your resources are what we call differentiated. You know, they're adapted to meet each sort of person's needs.
With this teaching, the teaching skills that you have, do you find that the students only listen to you because you build a relationship up with them? Say, for example, that you were ill and you've gone back into the learning disability class, but they're only used to you, and another teacher takes over. Is it difficult for the students?
I mean, you know, it can be. We do have students with ASD.
That attachment they have with
yeah, I mean, for various different reasons.
Okay.
So, you know, autistic spectrum disorder, some students don't respond very well to change. But of course, we're all specialised in what we do, and the approach that we use when we go into that classroom would where we could accommodate those sort of needs. What we do tend to find is a few behaviours coming out.
Okay.
In the classrooms, you know.
Like what?
You know, the main teacher isn't here. I might see if I can wear my hat today.
Wow.
You know, just
Like-
they're teenagers.
Okay.
And there's boundaries. And there's boundaries for any teenager. It doesn't matter whether they've got a learning difficulty. So can you remember being at school and having the supply teacher?
Of course.
I would
Yeah,
never
whatever,
want
yeah.
to be a supply teacher.
Yeah, of course.
No way. So it's quite similar, really.
Yeah.
But they're small groups. We've got excellent support. You know, we're quite a big department. There's quite a lot of students there, but we all know each other, you know, and we all know each other's students where possible. And, you know, we try and keep that consistency for the students for a range of reasons, including, obviously, their confidence building. But, you know, meeting new people and having to work in different environments, in a safe environment, supports getting used to change.
Of course.
Which is what we need to be doing.
100%.
As well.
With your experience and with the amount of years that you've been teaching and stuff, just tell us about autism. Do autistic children ever go to have jobs and families? Or do they have to be looked after all the time by carers? What's that all about?
That's a really good question. So ASD, autistic spectrum disorder, is a spectrum. And you can have people who may never go on to do those things for a range of reasons because their autism is more severe. And then you get high functioning. You know, people who, I've got students who've got a GCSE in English with autism. There's absolutely no reason why they can't function in society.
Wow.
There's actually no reason why anybody with autism can't function in society.
Okay.
This isn't about it being their problem. This is about it being unfamiliar to people, unfamiliar to the general public. For example, how do you respond to somebody with autism? How do you respond to somebody who is standing potentially in the middle of a shop, who's repeating the same thing and maybe, you know, having some sort of tics or movements associated with their own autism? And a lot of people, you know, of course there are people who are unkind. You're always going to get that about anything. I do feel though that it's an ignorance, and when I say that, I don't mean that in a negative way. People just don't know. You know, you see more and more people with learning difficulties and children integrated into schools and into society and into the workplace, even on television now, which is really good. So we're becoming more familiar with learning difficulties and disabilities and autism. But I still think there's a bit of I want to say stigma, maybe. People don't know how to respond, how to react when they do see people. You know, I've experienced being out with students before, and you see people that turn their head or sort of like avoid the situation. And I don't think it's because people are unkind. I just don't think that, what am I going to do if that person says hello to me? Well, you say hello.
But do you think that, like, schools in general, generally schools and stuff, do you think we should be taught about disabilities, like learning disabilities, what autism is all about? Do you think that it's important to be taught at schools?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely.
As a life skill?
Totally, I really do. And it's about tolerance, you know, and having an understanding. I know that schools are more, you know, when we were at school, if you had or showed any signs of having a learning difficulty or not being able to do something, we were carted off down to a room called 9A, you know, where you received extra support. And then you were bullied for going to that room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we over the many years I've been doing this job, I've worked with people who have come up through what we call mainstream schools and special schools, as they're sort of commonly known. And there's a difference between the students that come up through mainstream schools and the students who come up through the specialist. I'll call it a specialist school because they are specialist. And quite a lot of students who we get who've come up from the mainstream schools have suffered. You know, they've suffered bullying because they've been placed into schools. When they've come up through the junior schools where kids don't see disability or colour or anything like that, they just see another person.
Okay.
It's when they get to the secondary schools and, you know, they start getting their own identities and slowly recognising that other people might be slightly different. That's when it counts. And schools have their policies on bullying and things like that. But I agree, you know, there should be more education.
So we should be taught.
We should be talking about
disabilities
it.
and stuff
we
like
should
this.
be talking about it.
How hard is it for somebody with a disability, like autism, for example, getting bullied? How hard is it for them to overcome this? Is it more difficult for them to overcome this, or is it normal?
Do you know, I don't know how to answer that. I mean, does anybody really get over being bullied? Imagine living in a world where, you know, through the eyes of somebody with autism, where their world is just slightly different to the way we see it.
But do they know they're getting bullied?
That's the thing. You know, they're human beings. They have the same feelings and emotions as us. And I know when someone's being horrible, you know. And I know how to describe that. I know how it feels, or I can say that person's called me a name or has treated me unkindly, and I can verbalise that. All these people feel is probably really lonely and sad, you know.
Yeah.
And hurt, but they don't really understand why. Some people know that they have ASD.
Of course.
But some people probably don't, you know.
I want to give you a scenario, right? Say you're out with one of your students. You're out, and like the common people, they look.
Yeah.
Say if one of the students had a fit.
Yeah.
Like loud noises, like autistics, they clap their hands.
Yeah.
They make noises, they have a little fit, right? In their little world, just for, okay. You get people that look at you, but they look at you for a long time. Would you say something, or would you just let it go?
I think it depends, really. I mean, I've grown a bit of a thick skin over the years, you know. I used to be really offended. I can remember being a younger, less experienced teacher and being quite cross about these things. But the older I've gotten and the more I've learned about life and about people, as I said earlier, I don't think the majority of people in the world are horrible. And if you see something that's out of the ordinary, human nature is to look. I think my focus at that time, if there was an issue with the student, would be on the student.
Of course. But
you know?
After you dealt with the student, do you think it's better for us to say, oh, by the way, he's autistic and he was just having I just explained it so they learn from it? Do you think that we were shy? Are we hiding behind that?
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. I've never felt sort of self-conscious or myself out in public with anybody who I work with. And I have worked with people in the past who have had full-on seizures on the street, and people have had to walk around us. Do you know the majority of people stopped and asked if we needed anything?
Wow.
For that. You know, and it's usually sort of younger people, and you know, something's going on out the corner of your eye and you can't help but sort of like glance over and look. I think if I did see it and the time was right, I'd probably say, it's okay, we're all right, are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Like
you know,
this.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
And then people go, oh, yes, you know, and but like I said, I don't think people are generally, not in that kind of a situation. I think most people would be looking more out of concern, probably wanting to say, can I help? Is there anything I can do? Otherwise, why linger?
Yeah.
You know, most people, if they had a problem with it, would walk away.
Do you think that there's enough support for the world of people with learning disability? Do you think there's enough support in the UK? Are we doing enough for these children to give them the best life possible?
I think there's great efforts being made. I do, and you know, we've got obviously schools and colleges that are providing an education and the social skills that are required. We've got a social care system on the outside that are doing their best, but they're stretched. You know, it's all about money. It's all about funding. What we do lack, we lack opportunities. We lack people with resources and facilities offering opportunities, giving people a chance. You know, I work with a woman called Libby. She's our job coach. She's fab. And, you know, she takes students on a weekly basis to Tesco's in Huntingdon. And Tesco's have been really accommodating. You know, most supermarkets, for you to work there, you're required to be multi-skilled. You need to be able to work in all areas of the store to get a job. Tesco's are really supportive. You know, certainly the Huntingdon store.
Okay.
And I also know that the students at Huntingdon go out and they do gardening in some of the old people's homes and things. That's wonderful. We've got a horticulture course. We've got an animal care course. All of the skills that a lot of our students would be great at. But what we need people to, you know, even if it's just once a month or once every 6 months, who've got a small company or a large company to say, do you know, we're going to open our doors today to give people an experience. It doesn't have to be a job, doesn't have to be a regular thing, just an experience of working in an environment, and it will give employees and people experience too. It's not just about our students, it's about giving other people the opportunity to actually spend time with somebody who they might not ordinarily do. You know, so in an ideal world, I think that's what we need. We need more everyday people with everyday businesses and, like I said, the facilities and resources to open their doors to us and see. Do you know, I once worked with a guy years ago, and his data entry skills, he was ASD, autistic spectrum. His data entry skills were second to none. The precision and speed.
Amazing.
He would have run rings around any data entry
Are they
clerk.
gifted, like autistic children? Are they gifted with like special stuff? They're like good at something?
Not always. No,
But
not,
there is, isn't there?
not always. I mean, and you do get people who can be sort of like extremely gifted in certain areas.
In certain things like maths and
savants.
that.
So, but generally speaking, somebody with autism has something that they particularly like, they're particularly interested in, and can probably answer an awful lot of questions about that particular thing. So, gifted, yeah, I guess so. I mean, yeah.
Through my experience and stuff, when we went to the school, I've never come across students with so much energy, so much vibes. And I can talk, but they were like, yo, you better move out of the way. I want to talk.
Absolutely. That's our students.
And honest to God, just for the people that are going to watch this and stuff, the world of learning disabilities, especially with autistic children, they are so much fun.
Yeah.
They're so much fun. I remember that guy wanted to be an actor and he's telling us about how he wants to be an actor. Then you got somebody else who wants to be a singer. So they still have dreams and visions and
Totally.
desires. The problem we have here is as soon as we heard the word disabled or learner disabilities, automatically your mind just goes blank. Oh, they're disabled. And I don't think that's right.
It isn't right.
That's why it's so important to talk to you about how special these children are and how much support they need and why not. They should be able to have an opportunity to have a good job. They should have the opportunity to have relationships. They should have the opportunity to debate and argue and say, oh, I don't like this.
Absolutely.
I don't like this. I don't want this. I want some. Why shouldn't they have a choice? But what I feel like, because I did a lot of research and I spoke to a lot of people before this podcast, and they're saying, look, they don't have a choice. We put them into a routine. So once we know about the routine, we'll put it into the routine. For example, my son will only drink from a red cup. We'll always give him a red cup. He might not like red.
Yeah, I mean...
You know, that kind of thing. Because I just think that we need to give them more of a little bit of a challenge.
No, I think so. So one of our primary goals, and one of my personal primary goals, is all about having a voice, being important, knowing you're important.
Yeah.
Even down to, you're right, which cup do you want? What are you going to wear today?
Yeah.
What do you want for breakfast? What do you think about that?
That's it.
What do you think? How
That
are
is
you
the-
feeling?
That's the conversation we need to have.
Yeah.
But when I've been involved with people, it's all about, here you go, we put the black... Give them a choice, man. It's like in charity, in the world that I live in,
Yeah.
trust me when I say this, I've traveled and we've given them what you're going to eat. Then we've learned something. Hang on a minute, let's ask them today, man, what do you
Yeah.
want? And then we'll go and get that. So here, have a choice. For example, Christmas. Instead of giving a children a voucher to buy a hat, or no, giving them a hat, we give them a voucher, say, go and choose your hats.
Yeah.
Go and choose your gloves. Because it's the buzz in going and buying the gift.
Exactly.
Not opening it. They want that buzz. They want to go out. They want to go and buy it.
Yeah.
This is exactly like the world of disability and what we're doing. And I just think it's so important that we as general public, we learn about autism, we learn about disabilities around us and be nice to these people and stuff because they are gifted and they're human beings.
Exactly. So, really, in a nutshell, treat them the same as you would anybody else.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
No,
definitely.
absolutely, why wouldn't you? There's none of this, let's let that person go first because, they've got a learning difficulty. No, they need to wait in the queue just like anybody else.
How many years have you been doing the learning disabilities? How
23.
many years? 23 years.
Yeah.
Say that you didn't do this. I'm just asking you. Say you weren't in this world. What would you have done?
God, I don't know.
Say you were a teacher and you were out of this world. What, as a person, as Claire, what would you want? What would you do? Where would you be today?
I would probably, my other passion is old people. And I would probably work in an old people's home.
And just to stop her there, I've seen her in action. I've seen this woman in action. We went to the care home. She is amazing. And also, there was a reunion. Remember?
Really? Yes.
With you.
Yes.
With
yes,
you,
there was.
yes.
And that was with the woman who I came out of teaching for a few years.
Yeah.
And I worked for Headway, an amazing charity who support people with acquired brain injury. And I did some community rehabilitation with this lady. Just for about 6 months or a year. And I couldn't believe it when we walked in there and she was there.
That's mad.
But that again stems back from when I was younger. I was looking after my nan and granddad with my nan from such a young age. So I've learned that.
Wow, because to watch that actually in front of my eyes, to watch that reunion, the way you acted, and the way she responded, and the way you were. Honestly, I just sat back and I listened to everything that you're doing, watching you. You're gifted, and honest to God, people like yourself, it's not education. It's not the way you're taught how to do things. I just think that sometimes you're gifted with these things and you are a special person, especially with what you've done and stuff like this. It's very, very difficult. Could you see yourself going back and teaching children without learning disabilities? Do you think you can go into that world?
No, absolutely not. I can't think of anything worse.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No way.
Seriously. And I really, I've got when I say this, I have got so much respect for teachers who teach what I teach, but also the teachers who teach mainstream students, for want of a better phrase. I think they have got their work cut out. I think the youth of today are really challenging. Do you
think it's harder? Do you think it's harder?
For different reasons.
Okay.
Of course, the students I teach, they come with their teenage issues. They're growing up. They're finding their place in the world as well. But I've got a teenager. I wouldn't want to teach her.
Wow.
I don't want it. With the issues that she comes home with, and some of the stuff that some of my friends who are school teachers tell me about, their classes of like 30 students, I mean, I teach classes of up to about 10 and, don't get me wrong, it's challenging. It is challenging for all the reasons I explained earlier, having to do sort of like different sort of lesson plans for different students and what have you. But no, and again, like I said, I don't mean that disrespectfully.
Of course, it's not disrespectfully.
Want to.
It's just that the world that you're in and both worlds. And it is difficult. We work in schools.
Yeah.
I do motivational speaking in schools. Yeah. I do gigs all over the country.
Yeah.
And I've seen the way children are, and I've seen how just even when you're there, and Fraser is one of the witnesses.
Yeah.
We've done a gig, the last gig that we did, 400 students, and there was a young girl talking about bullying, and there was a group of lads laughing. And I stopped it, and I said, hang on a minute, whoa. This is unspoken here, man. I don't know what you're used to, but let's talk about this situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right now. And it was like, all right, and the teachers looked at me, and they're going, carry on, mate. Carry on. Because they get so used to, let it go. No, we're not going to let it go.
No, that's right.
Somebody is confident enough to come up on stage in front of 400 people and to tell you your story about how she's getting bullied, and you got the nerve to laugh. It ain't happening on my watch, dude. So let's talk about it. We're going to talk about it right now. And I tell you what, they showed me so much respect afterwards. They're the same children who came up and actually did the bullying thing that we did in yours.
Yes.
The first time ever.
Yeah.
We did that experiment with the bullying.
Yeah.
We did that there.
Brilliant.
We did that there with them same children that I told. Not tell them off, but just tell them, look, you can't get away with that. Because you got away with teachers that, don't. They don't need to know about don't. Say, why are you doing this, dude? If your life in a hand now, that's bullying too.
Yeah.
Because now the student can now take it back saying, oh, it took me so long to come up on here. Why did I do this, man? They're laughing at me. We don't want to encourage her.
No.
So you know what, from now on, if anybody bullies you, man, don't worry, man, we got your back.
No, exactly. See, you're in a really good position to be able to do that because, you know, you're fresh and new to the students, and teachers are, you know, we're sort of bound by protocols and
That's all strict.
In you know, where we've got like a zero tolerance on bullying. That's across, I'd say, every school or college. You know, but you were sort of restricted in some respects as to the things you can and can't do about challenging students and the way in which you do that. For example,
is there a lot of bullying in the world of like learning disability? Do they bully each other?
Not really. I mean, it would be wrong of me to say no. Do some of them deliberately bully? Probably, yeah. But it's more about conflict, lack of understanding, social media. Somebody sends me a message, the person receives it, it goes out onto a group message, and there's a lack of understanding about what the message means.
Okay.
You know, and somebody tells somebody something, and then it gets, you know, it's exactly the same in our SEND world as it is in any other teenage world. It wouldn't be any different because we're all human beings.
Of course.
You
If
know?
I was to ask you if there was just one thing that we can improve, like in the world of learning disability, what is one thing, if you had the power to change it or to do it, what would it be to make their life better?
So a superpower, if I could change something, it would be for people to open their doors and experience what I have for the last 23 years, because I can tell you wholeheartedly. So you asked me a little bit earlier about would I want to teach in a school. My heart is with special educational needs.
God bless you.
Every inch of me is with special educational needs. I live and breathe my job. I love it. And if I could give a gift to anybody, it would be to spend some time in a classroom or anywhere with our students, because I can feel really rubbish in the morning and I walk into that classroom and, you know, I mean, I just love what I do.
Wow.
I love what I do. And, you know, sometimes my students think I'm a little bit out there. You know, Claire, what's wrong with you? You're really hyperactive. I love it. Why wouldn't you be? Fraser's been in and done some teaching with my students.
That must have been a dull day.
No, they loved
it.
And actually, so Fraser had, you know, a knowledge of the photography, etc. Clearly, come into the classroom and I believe left it. And adapted to it, and the students loved him. So if if you've got something to give, come and give it.
Definitely. Right, just to wrap this up, first of all, thank you so much, Claire, for coming, ruining my head. I will never forget that. But anyway, what we've learned today is we've learned a lot about learning disabilities and the world that Claire lives and breathes every single day. As you've heard it, this is not really a job for her. This is like a dream come true. She goes to work. If she's had a bad day, she goes to school, and her life is buzzing, and she's vibrant around these children with autism. It's a very important thing. There's not many people in the world like Claire, and I'm saying this only because I know you. And I know your heart is in the right place. I've worked with you. I've been to old people's home with you. I've witnessed how much of a wonderful person that you are. Love you to bits. You're a proper G, yeah? So what I want to ask you as well now is for your last message to me and to the general public that are going to be watching this and sharing this podcast.
Yeah.
Share this podcast. Give us your last message. What would you like to say before we conclude?
I just want to, really, agreeing to do this and to talk to you sort of publicly about this is to share my passion, really. And I know it's not for everybody. I really respect that. But my life has been enhanced because of what I do. And I love what I do. And, there's other things. I mean, I've got Shani here with me, who was in the picture. And Shani comes and shares my home. Yes. Shani comes and shares my home at the weekends, 3 weekends out of 4 as well. And Shani has a learning difficulty, and I've looked after her for 5 years. And again, it's a life changer. And it can be so rewarding. It's a privilege to be part of these people's lives. For me, it really is. And I think we give each other equal amounts. So I give the teaching, they give me. I learn something every single day, pretty much. After 23 years, I'm still learning from the people I work with. And for that, I'm really grateful.
Thank you very much. This is a podcast with the amazing Claire. An insight of learning disabilities. Thank you very much for everybody that supports us on a daily basis. Also, I just want to end this podcast is that me and my partner Fraser, that's involved with Unspoken, which today has been sponsored by Brown Bear. I'm not going to give the cup back. That we're not after clout. On a serious note, we're not after no clout. We don't want to be famous. We just want to get content out there as real people like Claire, who talks about real issues. And by the time somebody's seen this, if we can change one life, if one person sees this podcast and sees a person with learning disabilities and gives them love and opens the door for them or wants to learn about autism, this is a round of applause for this podcast. We're not after no clout. Our heart is pure and we want to get good, solid intent out there. And we're taught this time and time again. As a Muslim, we are taught this time and time again. Look after everybody. And your race, your color of your skin, your race, it doesn't matter. We've been taught by the best of the best, by our Prophet, peace be upon him, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that to be kind to people. And what Claire is doing is just amazing. So thank you very much, Claire. I would like to give a big shout out to all the teachers and all the people in your team, in your school that look after children with learning disabilities. I salute you. I think that you're the most amazing people. Honestly, you're amazing people. Thank you very much for being so special. Big shout out. Big shout out to you. Come
and say hello.
Shani, come and say
hello.
Big shout out.
Oh, look at you. Make yourself at home. Say hello. Can you say brown bear? Can you say brown bear?
Just want to say thank you to Shani, an amazing individual, amazing character.
Can you say thank you? That's it.
Say team Unspoken.
No.
Say team Unspoken. We did the video. Shani and I did the video for Good Deeds 24. We were in it.
Yeah,
weren't we?
Well done.
We were in it.
Well done. Big up, thank you very much. Well done, Claire.
No worries. Thank you so much.